Okay, so we're starting the fourth part of our Bhagavad Gita classes, and we're going to cover text 39 through 53. Last time we heard Krishna addressing Arjuna's main point of misunderstanding, the thing that was causing him to lack perspective in his decision making, was the knowledge of the soul. And at the very end, they gave us a teaser of what was to come. And so the topic that this is going to be primarily, it's called Nishkama Karma Yoga, or acting without ulterior motives or desires. Nishkama, without desire. And so he's going to teach Arjuna. First, he said you should follow your duty. You shouldn't ignore your duty, because this dharma is a principle given by God that ensures the welfare of everyone. And so he said you can't if you make a decision that says you should not follow your dharma, you've made a mistake. There's something wrong in your reasoning. But he says now you should do it in a certain way in order to get the most benefit from it. Now we're going to start with a purport here that I'm going to quote from the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, because the way you can look at the Bhagavad Gita chapters 2 through 6 is that sometimes it's called the yoga ladder, that there's various different types of yogas, starting with this Nishkama Karma Yoga, moving up to Jnana Yoga, knowledge, and moving up to meditation or Ashtanga Yoga or Dhyana Yoga that lead to Bhakti. So it's described like a ladder, and they lead step by step up to Bhakti. And then from 7th chapter on, especially the next 6 chapters, 7 through the next 6, those are primarily, 7 through 12 are primarily focused directly on Bhakti. Prabhupada sometimes says that that we have a choice. We can go up the stairway one step at a time, or we can take the elevator already to the top. And but we'll notice something about Srila Prabhupada's commentary, that he really talks about bhakti almost the whole time. And he when we read his translations and purports, even here in this Nishkama Karma Yoga section, many times he translates karma yoga or buddhi yoga as bhakti, as devotional service. He even says in one of the purports, karma yoga, buddhi yoga, bhakti yoga, just plainly it's devotional service. It's all talking about devotional service. He really kind of Krishnaizes or bhaktiizes these yogas that we're talking about. And so the question arises, a couple of questions. First of all, since most people that are listening to Bhakti Shastri, we're teaching about bhakti here, have already adopted bhakti yoga, and all of these introductory chapters 2 through 6 are really showing how we go step by step towards bhakti. Okay, why are we bothering with them? We could ask that question. And the second question is, why does Srila Prabhupada seem to bhaktiize them? And so there's a purport in the 6th chapter where he reveals, I think, his understanding, and it shows both of those things. Why we still want to read these chapters of things that are preliminary to bhakti, and how they can be useful in our bhakti. Why he bhaktiizes them. So let's take a look. I have the purport broken up into a few slides, and so this is in the last verse, I believe, of the 6th chapter, 647 in his commentary. And here's what Prabhupada says. He acknowledges that this yoga ladder is here. He says the culmination of all kinds of yoga practices lies in bhakti yoga. All other yogas are but means to come to the point of bhakti in bhakti yoga. Yoga actually means bhakti yoga. All other yogas are progressions towards the destination of bhakti yoga. So again, we can ask the question, well, then why not just start out with bhakti and not worry about these other ones? So we look at the next slide as a continuation of that same purport. He says, from the beginning of karma yoga, that's what we're going to talk about today, to the end of bhakti yoga is a long way to self-realization. Karma yoga without fruitive results is the beginning of this path. This is nishkam karma yoga, without a desire for these particular results. And so that's the beginning. Okay. Now the purport continues here in this next one. He says, when karma yoga increases in knowledge and renunciation, the stage is called jnana yoga. When jnana yoga increases in meditation on the supersoul by different physical processes and the mind is on him, it is called ashtanga yoga or jnana yoga, meditational yoga. And then he concludes it, he says, and when one surpasses the Ashtanga yoga and comes to the point of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, it is called Bhakti yoga, the culmination. Okay? So he maps out the ladder there. He tells us that, that it really all is meant to lead to bhakti. And then he gives us this interesting statement that follows here in the same purport. And he says, factually, bhakti yoga is the ultimate goal, but to analyze bhakti yoga minutely, one has to understand these other yogas. See, this is really interesting. And it's easy to just pass right by this, but when analysis means to break something into pieces. So what he's saying here is that these other yogas comprise portions of bhakti yoga. If you divide bhakti yoga into its parts, this is minutely, you will see these other yogas acting in some way. So it's not just that one goes from one to the other, but one brings something with you from each of these steps that become integral parts of bhakti. And so what we have a chance to do by studying these different yogas in the yoga ladder is to take a look at our own bhakti and see, do we have these components, right? This means they'll be contained in complete, healthy bhakti. And so we can see, we can build a nice foundation for our bhakti by learning what we can learn from these other steps, the nishkama karma yoga, jnana yoga, and ashtanga yoga. And we can also take a look at our current bhakti and see, wow, does it contain all the parts? Is something missing? Do I have a hole here? So that's why we want to study them. So we can kind of look at our bhakti kind of almost step by step. And then the reason why we want to Krishnaize them will be clear here. Prabhupada said, and we'll show here how the other yogas remain present in bhakti a little bit here. So if you have karma yoga without fruitive results, right? Karma yoga, what it does, it says you follow your dharma. This is what Arjuna, Krishna told Arjuna last time. Fight for the sake of fighting. Don't worry about victory or defeat, loss or gain, fame or infamy. You just do it because it's the right thing to do. It's your dharma. You just do it for that reason, not for any particular payoff. And we as bhaktas, we have a dharma, our constitutional dharma of serving Krishna, and we do it for his pleasure, if it's done appropriately. We'll talk a little bit about that it's difficult for us to actually take up the process of karma yoga directly, and mentioning the main reason for that is that the dharma that Arjuna was following simply isn't available in this day and age. We'll talk about that a little bit further. So our as devotees, our dharma is our devotion. Lord Chaitanya speaks about this, that the real nature of the jiva, of the souls, is to be a nitya Krishnadas, servant of Krishna. So there are various different other kinds of dharmas in the Vedas that relate to your own particular personality, position in society. And those may change birth after birth. But every soul has as its essence, dharma, one meaning of dharma is that it's the essence of something. Our essence is that we're servants of the Lord. So here, as devotees, our dharma is, we take it our dharma as being servants of the Lord. And so, we're supposed to do it just like the karma yogis do, the nishkama karma yogis do, just like Arjuna is supposed to fight. without thought of all of these other things, whatever benefits it may have for him personally, but just do it for the sake of doing it, we also serve Krishna because it's the right thing to do, not thinking of what the consequences will be so much. So there's a certain similarity in mentality that persists from the Nishkama Karma Yoga into the Bhakti. So we can see we can see that in the analysis. Our next slide, which shows how the yogas move from one to the other and how they function. There's a function in this Nishkama Karma Yoga. What happens actually is that Krishna tells Arjuna that he's a soul, and that we all are souls, which are quite separate from the body and the mind. We had all the different interesting characteristics. How we're eternal, we're completely changeless. Nothing can touch us. Not weapons, not fire, not water. How we're always we haven't. We kept saying so many times, changeless, eternal, beginningless, primeval, but also we heard that it's difficult to understand that. It says that most people don't even hear about the soul. And those that do have a hard time to understand it. So Karma Yoga is supposed to help us to take the understanding more deeply. We understand it theoretically, but to be able to more clearly understand ourselves as a soul and not as the organism we think we are. And so in Karma Yoga, the way it works, by having this notion, we talked about how come we get absorbed last time. How can we mistake ourselves for being a mind and a body instead of a soul? How do we forget who we are? And it's through this absorption. So that we focus all of our attention on our minds and our bodies and the world around us and what we can get out of them. We're very, very interested in these things. We're interested in certain outcomes. We want to avoid different kinds of outcomes. And we spend so much time and energy on it that we forget that we're observers more than anything here. So here I said, the desire for material results increases absorption in the body and the external world, while action without such desire helps to awaken knowledge of the soul and detachment, which is what Jnana Yoga is. So by acting in the way that Krishna is going to tell Arjuna to do, it helps him to come to his senses, to sober up a little bit and not simply have his attention all being drawn out to the outside. But he'll be able to compose himself and come to himself and begin to realize himself that, hey, I'm here, I'm a soul, I'm watching this actually. I'm not, I'm separate from the body. The mind, I'm conscious of the mind. It's not me. And all the things that I think are happening that are so crucial, I've been through many, many, many lifetimes. And most of the things, the happinesses I've had and traumas I've had, I can't even remember them now. So it awakens knowledge and detachment. And it's interesting, in Srimad Bhagavatam, it's mentioned, it's the first canto, second chapter, text number 7. It says, by rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. And so when we say that we serve Krishna, that's what we mean. We're not concerned about the results for ourselves. Service to another means that. So we're automatically in that we're fulfilling what the Nishkama Karma Yoga does, following our Dharma, but doing it in the right way. And so even there it says that bhakti produces that. And so we see kind of how the mechanism of that is working. That a strong component of bhakti producing knowledge and detachment is the fact that we reduce that absorption in worrying about particular outcomes and simply do our duty. Then we can look at Jnana Yoga, the knowledge of the soul and renunciation. It has those components to it. And knowledge and renunciation open the way for the mind to be controlled, which makes possible meditation on the supersoul. That's what Astanga Yoga does. So each yoga helps to build on the other. Arjuna will get information about the soul that we got last time. He will show that even though that when you hear about it, it's amazing and you can't understand it, you can gain a deeper experience of it through acting dutifully without wanting material results. And that will then awaken that knowledge, which increases his detachment and which will allow him to control his mind and focus it within in deep meditation. That we'll see in chapter number 6. We'll talk about the meditational type of yoga. And so the ultimate of dhyana is to focus the mind on God, on the Paramatma generally, the super soul. And look what happens with the principles of bhakti. This is a verse from the Padma Purana that's quoted by Rupa Goswami in the next book we're going to study, The Nectar of Devotion. And he says, Krishna is the origin of Lord Vishnu. Krishna should always be remembered and never forgotten at any time. All the rules and prohibitions mentioned in the Shastras should be the servants of these two principles. Right? So the purpose of our devotional practice is to remember Krishna all the time and never forget him. And you see a similar thing is trying to be done through the Ashtanga Yoga, although it's being done with the super soul. So we see a certain continuity. There's some elements of each of these yogas that persist in bhakti and are essential ingredients in bhakti. If they're missing, our bhakti is incomplete, and we need to take some measures. So therefore, looking at these yogas separately is very useful for us and interesting to us. We see now why it is that bhakti produces, knowledge and renunciation. Because with bhakti, there's an added ingredient. Krishna also participates in our enlightenment, but still, that part of the yoga is still quite present. Okay, so now I'm going to look at kind of why we. Okay, so those that take the long way to self-realization by passing through the yoga ladder bring to bhakti a strong foundation upon which to build their practice. So that's why we're going to take a look at that. For us who come directly to bhakti, it is instructive for us to understand these foundations so that we are able to examine our bhakti to see if it is built upon a solid foundation. Bhakti properly performed will automatically contain the benefits of all the other yogas, but bhakti which is deficient will not yield the same results. So now, why do we want to kind of bhakti-ize these chapters? Because it isn't practical to try to ascend the yoga ladder in this day and age, and that's because of the lack. The main thing there is when we start out with nishkama karma yoga, we need to have the system of dharma that's in place when Arjuna and Krishna are present. It simply doesn't exist. And even if we try, we see Arjuna trying to do good. So if we don't have, even if we think, okay, I'll just try to be a good person and do all kind of good things, without the omniscience that Krishna has to be able to set up guidelines, even if we want to do good, we can make mistakes just like Arjuna did. He had a good heart. He was trying to do the right thing, but he was wrong. There's a saying, right, that the path to hell is paved with good intentions. And so in order to be able to do the right thing, we have to know what the right thing is. And without the guidance of God-given rules and guidelines, we have trouble. We will make mistakes. So we really don't have the opportunity to perform nishkama karma yoga as done by Arjuna and those in the Vedic age. We have to transfer that to our own eternal dharma as servants of Krishna. So our dharma is being servants of Krishna. And so in order for us to see how to use these particular concepts or particular useful items from these yogas to make sure that our bhakti is complete and fully functional, we have to see them in a bhakti way. So we're gonna follow Srila Prabhupada, and we'll mainly look at how the aspects of the various yogas may be properly incorporated into practice. We're going to see things through a bhakti lens. See, how can I take the proper attitude from nishkama karma yoga? How does that apply in bhakti? How does that part of jnana fit into bhakti? How do the instructions that he gives in Ashtanga yoga fit into our bhakti practice? So that's why Prabhupada does that. You can't do these things independently. So therefore he shows us how they're relevant to bhakti. and they reveal something about the composition of bhakti, and so they're very useful to look at. So that's the answer to those two questions. Why, if they're talking about these other yogas that just simply lead the bhakti and we're already bhaktas, why do we deal with them at all? And why do we bhaktaize them so much if they're actually separate types of yogas? So here we'll take the first section of okay, the quick question.
A quick question. It skipped.
Okay, so we'll continue. So we're going up until verse 53, but the first section here is 38 through 46, and here I'm kind of giving it a little tentative title here: aiming for transcendence. This is the thing. If we understand that we're souls, and Krishna and well, let's take Krishna. If we remember that we're souls, and we understand what that means, Krishna automatically says that means you should aim for transcendence. You should aim for liberation, aim for deathlessness. We said that we had those little sections, 12, 13, 14, 15, that kind of gave so many things in a nutshell. He said then you should aim for transcendence. So what Krishna is doing here in this section, in many ways, is telling Arjuna that if he's going to aim for transcendence, if he's going to aim for liberation, not aim for anything as his goal in life to be anything within this world, that he has to develop a certain faith, and he has to have a firm resolution to do so. It is not an easy thing, but it's something you have to really make a really strong, overt commitment to. And that's what he's going to give Arjuna faith in this goal, and remove faith in any other types of goals. And then he's going to move into the next section, into the actual practice of karma yoga. What happens is that Krishna gives him that theoretical understanding of the soul, but as we found out, even when we hear about it, one of the amazing things is that we do not understand very well. Even after hearing about it, we can't understand it as well as we should. We heard very clearly. Do we always feel like we're eternal? Do we feel like we've never had a beginning and will never have an end? Do we feel that we're untouched by all the things that happen to us? We don't feel that way. If we see a weapon, it frightens us. So it's very difficult to do that. So Krishna is saying that then you have to act with this nishkama karma yoga attitude, and you have to focus your attention at trying to attain liberation. That's the only way then that you can really develop your understanding of the soul. So let's look a little bit. We'll start. We're gonna kind of go by. It's 39 actually. I think I made a mistake here because I'm starting out with 39. Yeah, we went. I made a mistake on my PowerPoint here. It's actually going to be 39 through 53, and this section is 39 through 46. And so 39, Krishna says, "Thus far I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study." Well, that was about the soul. "Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. O son of Pritha, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works." Karma bandha. What does that mean? The bondage keeps us keeps us from being liberated. It says actions in violation of dharma produce negative karmic reactions. Actions in accordance with dharma produce positive karmic reactions. Actions in accordance with dharma but done without material desires frees one from the bondage of both of those things. So it doesn't produce any karma, and actually we'll hear later on it burns up the karmic reactions that are in place. So Arjuna is being encouraged to bring his still largely theoretical understanding of the soul into the performance of his dharma. So that's because the word here is buddhi yoga. Prabhupada says, and I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. The term that Krishna uses in the verse is buddhi yoga, and buddhi means intelligence. You see? So he's going to bring that knowledge that it's for him, it's still kind of theoretical, just like for us, of him being a soul, and he's going to try to bring that into his actions. That's what helps him to focus on the notion of liberation instead of anything else, and that's what helps him to act without material desires in that action. So he's trying to bring a certain intelligence to his actions. Now he's no longer just trying to do the right thing, but he's trying to find out how to do it in the right way that leverages real value. Right? Everything in the material world is temporary and changing, but we are always eternal and non-changing. So we want to try to come to the platform of understanding ourselves as a soul. That will mean, of course, that we're servants, but that's Krishna's not talking about so much right now. So we're trying to act in ways that leverages the value of the soul and minimizes the value of things that don't have so much value. We talked about last time how there are things that are permanent and there are things that are temporary. Right? So this is buddhi means that he's taking his whatever understanding he has of the soul and he's trying to bring it into his life, into his activities. That's what this buddhi yoga is going to mean. And now Krishna gives him a reason to have faith in this kind of a practice. And he says, 240 is, in this endeavor there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. And in his purport, Prabhupada says, activity in Krishna consciousness, or acting for the benefit of Krishna without expectation of sense gratification, is the highest transcendental quality of work. Even a small beginning of such activity finds no impediment, nor can that small beginning be lost at any stage. Any work begun on the material plane has to be completed, otherwise the whole attempt becomes a failure, but any work begun in Krishna consciousness has a permanent effect, even though not finished. And so Prabhupada mentions this many times, that, because Arjuna will have this question later on, that what if I aim for transcendence and I don't make it? And I, at the same time, then have neglected my material life. I haven't. So then, don't I lose out on both ends? And even either from a karma yoga perspective or from a bhakti perspective, some of the commentators, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says that this verse can really only fully apply to bhakti. That even Nishkama Karma Yoga doesn't produce effects quite like this, that Krishna is getting ahead of himself a little bit and talking a little bit about bhakti ahead of time. Baladev Vidyabhushan, he kind of leaves the door open that Nishkama Karma Yoga, at least with some understanding of God, can produce this. But in any case, Krishna is giving Arjuna the notion that if he follows what he's telling him, that success is guaranteed and there's no loss. And so he's trying to give him faith in this process.
Still, Krishna is not talking anything about bhakti, right? Still, he is telling do without fruiting.
So far, he's not mentioning bhakti directly.
Okay.
Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says he's doing it indirectly. Yeah, he's exaggerating a little bit what the Nishkama Karma Yoga can accomplish, is what he's saying.
Okay.
But still, even so, Nishkama Karma Yoga is still far better. This is Baladev Vidyabhushan's argument, still far better than performing karma with desires. And it still produces long-term benefits. So it's partially true. So 241, those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. So here he's talking about this notion of making a firm resolve, and you do that when you're confident about it. Right? So he has some knowledge of the soul that transcendence is the way to go. Krishna has reassured him that if he does that, he can't lose. And so now he says, now you have to really make that determination. That's your one goal in life, aiming at transcendence. So Prabhupada says, he has a couple of things he says in the purport. He says, the whole process, however, depends on perfect knowledge of the soul, beyond the conception of the body. Interesting, isn't it? Not theoretically, but practically, when there is no longer a chance for sense gratification, manifested in fruitive activities. One who is not firmly fixed in mind is diverted by various types of fruitive acts. So we see that we already saw that this nishkama karma yoga, acting without wanting the fruits of the actions, is helping us to have, like he says, not theoretically but practical understanding of the soul. So these two things fit together. You have to have a determination to begin with, to start the process, but that determination will increase as the realization of the soul takes place. So it's interesting. He says that for us to have be really focused on our real goal and not have so many branches to our understanding, have so many priorities, juggling different priorities in our lives, to have one overriding one, which for us will be to become Krishna conscious. For Arjuna, Krishna is still talking about liberation. But to do that, in order to really have that, we have to have, it's proportional to our understanding of the soul. And so that's why also Krishna he's giving him ways to realize the soul. Then Prabhupada says, the highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation of the material conception of life. This state is automatically achieved by progressive Krishna consciousness. Again, we said how the greater realization of the soul automatically leads us to detachment. We see the separation between us and the world around us. Otherwise we think it's me. This is me. We think the mind is me, the body is me, and the I and mine concept. Right? And so everything is very important. But as we begin to see ourselves as, from a hugely longer perspective, this is only one life of so many. One thing, if something happens that isn't very pleasant, well, we've been there and done that before. It's not quite as crucial to us. It may still not be pleasant. Okay, so let's look at text 42 and 43, where he mentions what people who don't have this kind of resolve are thinking. The wrong kind of thinking here. He wants Arjuna to focus on transcendence, but he says, men of small knowledge, this is Bhagavad Gita 242, 43, are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resultant good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more. Then this Prabhupada calls these the Vedavata Ratahas. Krishna does, actually. The Vedavata Ratahas. And Prabhupada makes this interesting comment in the purport where he says, such persons have no faith in liberation from material bondage. So there are people who understand the existence of a soul. Those who perform karma kanda is called in the Vedas, who try to perform good deeds in order for the karmic reward. You can't have karma, at least in the classical sense, without multiple lifetimes. Because karma just doesn't happen that quickly. And we see it. You see people who do good things and suffer. And we see people who do bad things and don't yet. So the whole notion of karma is that your actions, the results of your actions follow you birth after birth. You reap what you sow later on. And so by talking about the soul to begin with, you get a broader perspective. That's what Krishna first told to Arjuna. He tried to show him how performing his dharma just in an ordinary way was going to give benefit for everybody. So he had to see things in a broader perspective, see that they're going to keep living, that he's going to keep living, that everybody was alive before. This is one small episode in our existence, and then allow him to be sober enough to act according to dharma. But he says many people understand that much, but they don't understand that the soul can be separated. They think that the two things are essential components of a functioning organism. A soul has to have a body to be able to do anything. It's how they will think. And it's not true. The soul has its own form has its own activities. It doesn't need a body.
In this world,
but But that's all. So they say that's all there is. All you do then is you try to make a better life for yourself by performing pious deeds, and they don't have any conception that the soul can exist on its own. It can have a whole life on its own without a physical body or a physical mind. It's not required. So that's to say, they have no faith in liberation from material bondage. So we do not require our
In
bodies.
spiritual world, we don't require, but as long as we are in this world,
But
some
that
body is required.
but that's why we're aiming for liberation, though.
Yeah.
You see, that's why. So yeah, the soul in material world, functions through the body in that way.
Whoever knows that there is an existence of soul, like whoever accepts the existence of soul, all of us doesn't know the concept of liberation.
There's many people that don't. There's many people that just think there's a soul that goes from body to body to body. That's how you take rebirth. But there's no such thing as the soul existing separately from the body. So there's a whole section of people, because the karma amongst the philosophy it's called, here Prabhupada calls them, or the Krishna calls them the Veda Vadaratas, who just think that that's all you can do. So you get elevation to heavenly planets, resultant good birth, power, and so forth. They say that there is nothing more than this. Okay, so they think that there's a soul that goes through different reincarnations, but there's no chance for a liberation. Okay, so Krishna is telling Arjuna, he points it out right away, liberation is where you should go to. Nothing in this realm has value, only the soul. And so then he tells him in 244, in the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination, this is the Vyavasa Atmaka Buddhi he was talking about before, resolute determination to go for transcendence. And Prabhupada says here, for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. So in the same way, he said if we have strong material desires and attachments, that naturally means our intelligence follows those attachments and desires. We can't be we can't have just one focus in life. We have many focuses. Maybe we would like even to transcend. Maybe we would like to serve, but we have all of these other things too. So it keeps us from, it diverts and diffuses our focus here. And so that's why he's telling Arjuna that you really have to have a strong resolve if you want to aim for transcendence. You really have to know that that's the real value, and you really have to understand that nothing else is of real value. And Prabhupada says that that's going to come with him also, develop with him as he begins to act with detachment. That will produce a greater understanding of the soul, which will produce that kind of knowledge and detachment. But at least he has to start with as much as he can muster. And the same thing with us. This is part of the process of faith. Prabhupada he equated in the one that the 41, he equated that with having faith. So we have to have faith in Krishna, faith in the destination, and act accordingly, and then the knowledge of us. Let's kind of save questions a little bit more for the end, if we can. Okay. Okay, so 45, Krishna says again, he's reinforcing this goal of transcendence. The Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature. O Arjuna, become transcendental to these three modes. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. And Prabhupada says in this purport, one has to learn tolerance in the face of dualities, such as happiness and distress, or cold and warmth, and by tolerating such dualities become free from anxieties regarding gain and loss. This transcendental position is achieved in full Krishna consciousness when one is fully dependent on the goodwill of Krishna. There's a niryoga shema is in the verse, without thought for gain or safety or protection, and the commentators in Prabhupada is hinting here too that it's a foreshadowing of what Krishna will tell Arjuna later. That he says, I carry to you what you lack, and preserve what you have and carry to what you left. This is yoga means acquisition, and shema means like protection. Like I guess if you have somebody, if you have people in the mercantile business, you ask them how their shema is, how well they're keeping their assets, how secure they are. It's a certain security, the secure keeping of that which you have. And yoga means to gain something, to acquire. So acquisition and kind of retention, are there. And Krishna says, you don't worry about that. If you're not worried about your material life, but you're simply doing your duty without attachment, if there's something you need, I'll take care of that. Right? So he's kind of foreshadowing here. He says here he's just telling Arjuna to not be worried about those things. Later on, he's going to say, now this is why you don't have to. There's even more reason why you don't have to. Even now, you can say that because the soul is apart from everything else and isn't changed, isn't affected. What is the point? Right? What is the danger? What danger can you face? What need do you really have? We've been through. Even if somehow you lose your life, or these other people on the other side are losing their life in the battle, still they're alive. Actually, nothing that touches the soul at all, and there is no ultimate protection or safety. Materially, we all will pass away.
And why Krishna talking about liberation and all for him? Because basically he's asking him to fight, so he can tell that there is no sinning in killing. You can just.
Well, first he tells them that it'll be beneficial for everybody if he just does his dharma. But he's saying that I don't want you to stop with that. That's not the reason I want you to participate. That's not the reason why you should act. You should understand. First he explains to him, you're not understanding the soul. That's why you think everybody is going to die. And it's the end of the world. Now I explain to you the soul. But don't just understand it like ordinary people do, where there's no liberation. Understand what it means that there's a soul, that there's actual liberation, and that's what you should set your sights on.
Okay, by killing it helps for liberation. Is that he means to say?
No, what it means is that if he fights just by doing his duty, okay, then we talked about that. The Bhishma and everybody else will go to the heavenly planets. Right? Anybody who dies goes to the heavenly planets. Even if Arjuna dies, he goes to the heavenly planets. But if he does his duty in the right way, with this nishkama karma yoga, without thinking of loss or gain, victory or defeat, then he progresses on the path to liberation.
Okay.
Arjuna personally progresses on the path to liberation. So he's saying, as long as you know the soul, understand it properly, and understand that it is the only value. So not only should you do your duty, because he's going to not do his duty, which is going to cause you and others misfortune. We looked at that. We said, look, if whoever dies in the battlefield goes to the heavenly planets, even Brahmins, they work hard to get that goal. So very easily they attain something desirable. Same thing, and those who live, they get the glory of the kingdom. Right? And especially if Arjuna wins, which he's going to, Yudhisthira comes on the throne and the whole world benefits. Right? So Arjuna was arguing that everything bad was going to happen from the battle. Right? Krishna says, no, if you do your duty, everything good happens. But he says, now understand, and in order for him to realize that, to be sober enough to do his duty, he explained to him the soul. Look, your guys are not going to die. It's not a permanent death. They're going to even new bodies. Don't worry. So don't let just the emotion of the moment cloud your vision. See a lot broader perspective. But don't stop there. And just see that you're gonna that will keep taking birth. Look for the real value. And I've told you about the soul. I'll tell you the real secret: that the soul doesn't need the body. Then you should aim for transcendence. You see. So this is what this is for you. Yeah, and that's how you do that. Because by working without that attachment, then you begin to realize yourself as soul. Because what's happening is all of these attachments are drawing your attention into focusing on everything material. That causes you to forget your own identity. That's how you forgot who you were in the first place. But isn't that a good question? If we're a soul separate from the body and mind, why the heck don't we know ourselves? Shouldn't we know ourselves? If we should know anything, shouldn't we know ourselves?
We should know ourselves.
But we don't know because we've thrown our attention outwards. And now we've misidentified. We think this is me, that the mind I have and the body I have, this is me.
Yeah.
And so all this stuff is happening to me.
Okay.
And we lose our perspective, we lose our understanding. And even by hearing about it,
Okay.
it's difficult to understand. Right? That's what it said in that verse, the Ascharyavat verse, where it's amazing that people hardly ever hear about it, they hardly ever speak of it, and even if they hear about it, they usually don't understand it.
Right.
So we've been told, Prabhupada tells us time and time again, we're not the body, but do we really understand it? We don't. So Arjuna also wasn't in a position, after hearing about it, to understand it. So now Krishna is telling him how you can act in a way that will help you to develop that understanding. Okay?
First he tells
Yeah.
how it benefits others. By killing they will get
That's just to tell him how to do his duty. Period. But now here's how you do it to get to maximize the value for yourself. Okay?
Do it better.
Yeah. So that's what he's trying to do. In 246, it says, all purposes served by a small well can at once be served by a great reservoir of water. Similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, the rituals and sacrifices mentioned in the Karma Kanda division of the Vedic literature are meant to encourage gradual development of self-realization. And the purpose of self-realization is clearly stated in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 15:15. The purpose of studying the Vedas is to know Lord Krishna, the primeval cause of everything. So self-realization means understanding Krishna and one's eternal relationship with him. And so what Krishna is saying is that the Vedas say so many different things. He mentioned before that there's the Veda Vataratahas, who think that we should go to the heavenly planets, we should try to get high birth, we should try to build a good future for ourselves in this material world. And so there's actually so much of the Vedas are based on that. And he said previously that the Vedas talk so much about the three modes of material nature, they talk so much about this world. But he said here, that everything is accomplished. Every good thing you could want is accomplished simply if we take the essence of the Vedas. So for Arjuna at this point, it's looking for this liberation. And for us as devotees, it means, understanding Krishna. So that's why Prabhupada kind of bhakti-izes it here again, because our duty is to serve Krishna. If we do that, that fulfills everything. Everything else, all the other things that are given in the Vedas are compared to small wells. You can do everything with the big lake of water, and you take just what you want from it.
And the purpose behind
Yeah, because otherwise traditionally you'd have different wells or different things for different purposes. I remember I was on the Brajmandal Parikrama and I was going to wash my clothes at some hand pump someplace in the Brajmandal area, and some nice elderly gentleman, he says, no, he points over, he says, Coop, there's a well over there, and that's for the washing. He says, no, he says, Coop. So it doesn't get contaminated by different things. So this one's for drinking, this one's for bathing, this one's for the different kind of things. But if you have a big lake, all functions can be fulfilled there. So if we deal with the essence of the Vedas, the real purpose of the Vedas, then we don't have to worry about all the other wells. Right. He says, "Don't worry, just do this. You can be." So again, he's focusing Arjuna's attention. This is your one goal: achieving transcendence. Now he's going to speak how he does it, coming up in verses 47 through 53. So here, this is kind of like preparation for him. You have to understand your purpose. You have to be resolute, and focused in order to make this happen. Attaining transcendence or liberation is not something that can be done casually, on the side. It has to be an important part of your life. It has to be the most important thing in your life. And of course, it's mentioned here how, here it says, Prabhupada says, we said previously that by progressive, advancement in Krishna consciousness, these various things happen. So in the beginning, our understanding of the soul is quite theoretical and rather thin, I guess you could say. And then, but by doing what Arjuna is going to be instructed by Krishna, acting without so many desires, then that knowledge of ourself begins to come forward. And then our resolution and our resolve and one-pointedness also increases. Prabhupada was saying how that we need that resolute purpose to begin, but the degree that we have that resolve and one-pointed focus is dependent upon, he said, dependent upon our realization of the soul, not just theoretically, but practically. So we see how these things all fit together. Okay. So here the next section is verses 47 through 53, and so I'm titling that Attaining the Transcendence. First we dealt with that we were going to move towards it. That was our one goal, that it wasn't just enough to do good things, but that it was but that we want to do the right thing in the right way so that we have the opportunity to achieve transcendence and liberation. So this is what Arjuna is going to talk, or Krishna is going to tell Arjuna about here, instruct him on the path of Nishkama Karma Yoga. And here we go. So it starts with text 47. Krishna says, "You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty." The Prabhupada says in the purport, everyone has his proprietary right in regard to prescribed duties, but should act without attachment to the result. Such disinterested obligatory duties doubtlessly lead one to the path of liberation. That's what we talked about. So we talked also previously when Krishna was telling Arjuna about the soul, how the soul doesn't directly act. It's the body that's actually performing the actions. And so here he says that you're not entitled to the fruits because you're not the cause of the results of your activities. The soul basically just decides what to do, and the body is facilitated by higher powers. Is really what happens.
So don't think you are doing everything.
Yeah. So therefore you don't deserve deserve the results of the activities, because you can't perform them without help from higher powers. Actually, the soul's role in action is really just giving the okay and having the desire to act in a certain way. So signs off on it. So just like he said, he was telling that your body is killing, Bhishma's body. The soul doesn't kill, or it doesn't kill and is not killed, because that's happening on the bodily thing. So here he's saying the same thing. If you understand yourself as a soul, you won't think, oh, I'm doing this, now I deserve this particular result, because it's my action, I accomplished this. We'll hear more about that later. Kartamiti manyate, that you think you're the doer. So he says, never think about that. And so therefore he says, not only should you shouldn't even think that you're, really renounced, and that's why you're not acting for the results, but you should also understand you don't really deserve them. You have a right, but you're not entitled to the results.
So there is nothing that.
And so actually, if you think you're the doer and you want the results, then you have to pay the karmic price for it. Huh? You get karmic reactions for that, which keeps you in, we'll talk about it, keeps you in bondage. Okay? So text 48, he says, "Perform your duty equipoised, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga." So he's saying there's a way to act that's yoga. And Prabhupada says here in the purport, the following of Krishna's dictation is real yoga. And this is practice in the process called Krishna consciousness. By Krishna consciousness only can one give up the sense of proprietorship. One has to become the servant of Krishna, or the servant of Krishna. That is the right way to discharge duty in Krishna consciousness, which alone can help one act in yoga. So Prabhupada is telling us how we as devotees will see that verse, because what's our duty? To serve. Right? And how do we have equanimity and abandon attachment? As we become the servant. He says we give up the sense of propriety as we become the servant of Krishna. So that means I'm acting for Krishna's pleasure or Krishna's servant's pleasure. I'm acting on their behalf, not on my own behalf. So automatically, I'm not. It's not a normal exchange. Usually, I act thinking what I'm going to get out of it. Right? I'm trying to. If you go to work every day, you want that paycheck. Otherwise, you're not going there. You're not going to do service for your company. Right? That's not the ultimate goal. You're thinking when the paycheck will come, or if you own your own business, when the profits will roll in. It's not a selfless thing.
So I'm doing my job with attachment of salary.
Of course, right? That's the reason why you're doing it, isn't it?
Yeah, that is right. But I should get the salary, right? If I say no, not
Well, this is a example off the topic a little bit because it's not part of your dharmic duty in this case. But I'm saying that's how we usually act, and so people also performing dharma will think, "What's the payoff? I'm performing pious activities. What's my reward?"
right. Yes.
Okay, so that's to say, when you go to your work, you expect to get the reward. Otherwise, you have no motivation to do it.
Yes.
So in the same way, when the persons perform their dharma, they're thinking, "What will I get out of it?"
Exactly.
Okay, so Krishna is telling Arjuna that's not the attitude you should have. You shouldn't be thinking about the kingdom. You shouldn't be thinking about the heavenly planets, and we also shouldn't be thinking about
Their lives.
what benefit we'll get from this. At least material benefit that we're going to get from this, and not worry what the consequences will be. Simply, I want to. When we try to please others, that means it's not a selfish same. It's a different category. This that quality of not desiring something personally and materially is automatically fulfilled by the notion of service. Okay, so text 249 is O Dhananjaya, keep all abominable activities far distant by devotional service, and in that consciousness surrender unto the Lord. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. And the other commentators all agree that the abominable activities are all things that are done with it, even if they're either things that are done against Dharma, but they're also the things that are done according to Dharma, but with attachment to the results. Those even fall under from their mind that fall under the category of abominable things, or far inferior. They usually say they're far inferior. So it's a far inferior action to work even according to results. So like we may come to Krishna for something very specific. Please Krishna, I'd like a new car. Okay, so this is inferior. This is inferior because that's one thing we can look at from the karma yoga is that sometimes we serve Krishna, but for another purpose. You see, and that's and that can be kind of we'll talk about that more, but so Prabhupada says one who has actually come to understand one's constitutional position as an eternal servitor of the Lord gives up all engagements, save working in Krishna consciousness. Everything should be done in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of Krishna. That's his take on that. So we, and in our bhakti practice, sometimes we have other little subtle desires from our service. Prabhupada usually calls them. He likes to give us this threefold thing. He says, what is it? Profit, adoration, and distinction. And so if we serve Krishna with the think of getting something back from it, profit, or if we want to maybe get some recognition. So if I want to be recognized as a devotee or have this skill or that skill, or distinction, or even if I'm not even overtly recognized, I think of myself now as better or distinct from others. Yeah, because of that, something special. Yeah? So this partially. Returns us back to the level of action with desires. It's a little subtle, but that's what it is. So that's not acting in yoga. Just, the fact that there's some connection with Krishna helps mitigate that, but it's not ideal. 50, text 250 says, a man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions even in this life. Therefore strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. So here it says, not only do you not get reactions, karmic reactions for acting in the way that he's telling Arjuna to do, to simply do his duty without any thought of a payoff, but it removes the accumulated ones. So Prabhupada says, since time immemorial, each living entity has accumulated the various reactions of his good and bad work. As such, he is continuously ignorant of his real constitutional position. So again, so it's not only our current actions that are keeping us forgetting our position as a soul, but we have, due to all of our past activities, they leave impressions on the mind. They're called samskaras. And so I said here, so along with the good and bad reactions produced by good and bad work, they each leave subtle impressions on the mind which cause one to be attracted to further good or bad actions. The removal of these impressions helps clear the path for realization of the soul. So we have, from lifetime after lifetime, we have so many impressions in the mind. They're called samskaras. That's why we have a certain personality. That's why we're attracted to certain things, averse to other things. And they're in there. And they're already present. We don't have to make new ones, particularly. And so they are drawing our attention and our concern, and we identify with them, and that is part of what's happening here with this Nishkama Karma Yoga. Is it's also clearing away those past impressions. So it's not only are we just starting to look at things in a different way, having a different aim, trying not to build new impressions, but the old ones are being cleared out. This was being said here, that it clears what Krishna is recommending to Arjuna. This working in Nishkama Karma Yoga is also clearing out all these accumulated impressions that are also obscuring his view of his own soul, of his own self. So it's a very powerful activity. It's cleansing the heart in that way. And that is what will happen with us if we perform devotional service in that attitude. That all these different things that have accumulated for so many years can be removed. 51 is, by thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries. Prabhupada says in brackets, because it's not said directly, that going back to Godhead. So again, this transcendence. So this is what, and in this one, Prabhupada has bhakti-ized also the translation a bit, because here it says because really it's like buddhi yoga, by engaging in this nishkama karma yoga, that you can free oneself from the results of work. Although the commentators also, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur really says you can't have real liberation without some devotion. Nishkama karma yoga of itself cannot do that. So Prabhupada says, owing to ignorance, one does not know that this material world is a miserable place where there are dangers at every step. Out of ignorance only, less intelligent persons try to adjust to the situation by fruitive activities, thinking that the resultant actions will make them happy. They do not know that no kind of material body anywhere within the universe can give life without miseries. The miseries of life, namely birth, death, old age, and diseases, are present everywhere within the material world. And I took that particular snippet from the purport because we'll see. So I was thinking there might be a potential objection. So I'm talking here a lot and saying that Krishna is emphasizing transcendence or liberation, and someone may object that if we are really properly situated in devotional service, we should not desire liberation, but we should only want service birth after birth. This is a sentiment given by Lord Chaitanya in his Shikshastakam. Please give me your devotional service birth after birth. But we see so many times Prabhupada tells us how miserable the material world is and that we should want to get out from the practice of birth and death. So why? How those things fit together? And how they fit together is that when Lord Chaitanya was saying that, Nadanam najanam nasundarim kavitam vajigdisha kamaya mama janmani janmanishvare vavatad bhakti rahoit ki twai, he was speaking from the platform of ruchi. This we mentioned when we were talking about nectar of instruction, is a high level of sadhana bhakti. It's at the level of spontaneous devotional service. So our desire to serve Krishna is so strong. It's concentrated and strong. It's tasteful. We want to do it. We're attracted to it in a huge way, and it's pushing aside everything else. Nadanam, I don't want any wealth. Nadanam, I don't want peeps. I don't want people. These days, we don't want a posse. We don't want peeps. We don't want people. Yeah, we don't want these. Okay. We don't want either beautiful women or even sometimes it's interpreted that the beautiful words of the Vedas, anything that the Vedas tell about the kavitam, the beautiful poetry of the Vedas, we don't want that. So we don't want anything else. We just want your service. So this is a high level. If we look at that line, we probably wouldn't mind a little wealth. We won't mind a little bit of attention and a peep or two, and maybe something that the Vedas can provide, or a beautiful member of the opposite gender might not be a bad thing for us. We don't have that level of detachment, and therefore it means we have attachments, what's holding our devotion back. And so we mentioned in Isha Upanishad how it's important to know both the benefits of transcendence and the negativities of the material world in order to weaken those attachments. And so it's true that wanting to transcend has a certain tinge of selfishness to it. But it's a much more subtle selfishness than anything material. It's a big upgrade. And thinking about how miserable the material world is and thinking how we want to get beyond it helps us to remove those attachments that we already have, and that will help us to serve. And when our service becomes more mature and we reach the level of taste, then that little small defect will automatically go away from us. Because the service will be so tasteful, we won't care for anything else. If we try to imitate that level before we have that taste, it'll cause us more harm than good. We will not be able to uproot the desires and attachment that we have, and therefore we won't be able to progress in our service to the point where that happens naturally. Yeah. So the lessons we're learning here from Krishna, from the Nishkama Karma Yoga, that we're supposed to shoot for liberation or shoot for transcendence, is not a bad thing for us if we're in the stage of bhakti most of us are in, and that we shouldn't obsess over that little detail.
If it really taken out, like we will not say happy.
Yeah. So it's that's why I mentioned Prabhupada is he many times tells us we should try to get free from the cycle of birth and death. You see, Prabhupada gives us these the same instructions so often. Okay, let's take a look here. Now Krishna is transitioning to the next part of the chapter. We're going to finish the chapter next week. We took a little bit more time on this chapter than we may take on some others because it is kind of a summary of the work, and I wanted to get certain foundational concepts understood, and some of the other things will be elaborations on this. And so I wanted to take a little extra time on chapter 2, we have only so many sessions available to us, so we have to move quickly. But I went a little bit more slowly after chapter 2 because I think some of the main concepts are important to get established. So here we're transitioning to what happens when you're successful with this Nishkama Karma Yoga, or when we're acting according to our Dharma, service to Krishna, and aren't wanting something in return. What happens? And then so Krishna says, when your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. This is not gossip. It means heard in the Vedas. The Vedas are Shruti. things that are hurt. And so all the different things that might be there. Here Prabhupada says, there are many good examples in the lives of the great devotees of the Lord, of those who became indifferent to the rituals of the Vedas simply by devotional service to the Lord. When a person factually understands Krishna and his relationship with Krishna, he naturally becomes completely indifferent to the rituals of fruitive activities, even though an experienced brahmana. This also kind of refers back to that thing where you give up the wells if you have you give up the different types of wells if you have a great reservoir of water. You don't, and so he's saying that you just simply your attempts at liberation are sufficient. You don't worry about all of the other things that are supposed to be good, all the lesser goals. And then at the end he says, the last one for today, verse for today, when your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, this is what's heard, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness. Prabhupada says, a Krishna-conscious person or unflinching devotee of the Lord should not be disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, nor be engaged in fruitive activities for promotion to the heavenly kingdom. So he says that what happens then is next Arjuna will ask him, what does that person, how does that person behave? How does he look like? How can you recognize a person who's then have reached that level of jnana? See, the karma yoga has moved into jnana yoga, because the acting without material gain, material desires, is helping us to realize the soul. That's why Krishna engaged Arjuna in that. He can't understand just simply by hearing. So if you engage in that way, we described how that helps to take our meditation away from external things and allows us to come to our senses. When that happens in a full way, then we're going to manifest these certain things that are characteristic of being liberated while still in the body. It's called Jivan Mukta. And that's what we're going to discuss in the last final section of the chapter. Let me just finish this a little slide. We'll recognize something about the way how Krishna has been doing this. So Krishna's instruction started with knowledge of the soul, pointing out that Arjuna's lack of knowledge in that regard was causing him to be a well-meaning fool. And then he taught Arjuna that although it is hard to understand the soul simply by hearing about it, that it could be understood by performing his dharma without material desire. And he emphasized that he must have faith that nothing of the temporary world is of value, and that Arjuna should be resolute in his pursuit of transcendence. So if you see this, it should be kind of reminiscent about the kind of things that Prabhupada keeps telling us all the time. Like, what is the thing that Prabhupada says most? You are not the body. Right? Immediately, because if you're not on that level, there's not even a chance. You can't even talk about spirituality. Now, these days, people may talk about spirituality meaning more of some kind of deep emotion. It may mean, kind of your something, something that's a core part of your personality. You're reaching into your own spirit. You may be channeling your creativity or some of your best sentiments, various different things like that. But really, spirituality begins with a notion of the fact that we are a spirit, that we're a soul. And you can't even begin to speak technically about spirituality if you don't start with the level of the soul. And Arjuna was a good example that even though he was such a good-hearted person, without that understanding, he couldn't keep his sobriety, he couldn't keep his perspective, and he was going to actually do something bad trying to do something good. he was making a terrible mistake. So Prabhupada immediately tells us about that, right? And then he tells us, so many times about the horrors of the material world, the threefold miseries and the fourfold miseries in the cycle of birth and death. That knowing the soul, we should aim for transcendence. He tells us these things, and then he tells us how do we do that? By serving Krishna. You see, so you can see Krishna is following a very same. Prabhupada is following Krishna's example there, talking about the soul first, talking about how you can realize it more, and having that focus on on something, on a goal that's transcendent and not imminent.
One question. In Nishkam Karma Yoga, did Krishna is there in the picture, or it is just doing without expecting fruit and results?
Just purely, of course, generally, if you're doing Nishkama Karma Yoga, you have some understanding, of course, where the Vedas come from, but it's not directly connected with Krishna. Right? What remains in bhakti is that notion of simply doing what you're going to, doing the right thing, not for an ulterior motive. See, so that's preserved. That's Prabhupada says if you analyze bhakti, you'll find these other yogas within it. So that's the part that's there. Our situation is that we don't have the Vedic Dharma to do, because it just isn't present in the world now. So for our Dharma is service to Krishna. We take the deepest, the essence of every soul is that we're servants of Krishna. So in bhakti, instead of doing the Vedic Dharma without expectation of something material, we serve Krishna, which is our Dharma, also without that expectation. So that attitude that's brought to the actions in Nishkama Karma Yoga is preserved in Bhakti Yoga. Okay? And if it's not, then there's something that we need to adjust with our Bhakti. Okay? So that's why these topics, even though that Nishkam Karma Yoga doesn't talk directly about Krishna, it's relevant to devotees because it helps us to either build up our Bhakti in the right way, or to analyze our bhakti and to see if there's something missing or something amiss there. We need to have that attitude. Arjuna was said that Krishna was saying that you should be focused on the self, focused on your soul. That's how you keep equipoise in success and loss and defeat and all this kind of stuff. How you're just, and keep yourself focused on transcendence. That's how you're able to act in the world in a way that actually burns up your past karma, that doesn't make new karma, that helps you to realize yourself as a soul. So that's an essential ingredient in our bhakti. And so the same thing, where Krishna talked to us about the soul. So the reason why Prabhupada emphasizes that so much, if we can't understand ourselves as separate from the mind and the body and the rest of the world, and we can't understand ourselves, as an eternal being, and not someone who's actually caught up in the world, then we'll never get enough perspective to act properly. So Arjuna was a good guy, and he knew what he was supposed to do, but he just couldn't, because he lost that understanding. The emotions were just too powerful, and it threw him off course. So we will never be able to act in a coherent, proper way if we don't do that. So the spiritual enterprise depends upon that. So Prabhupada emphasizes that right away. So does Lord Krishna. And then, but it's not just, but Prabhupada says, for us to maintain our focus and to maintain our determination, Prabhupada says it depends upon not only the theoretical but practical understanding of the soul. So we've heard about the soul, but where's the practical understanding? It's more theoretical, so that's why there's the service. That's why there's a service without expectation of material reward. And that's the Karma Yoga. Nishkam Karma Yoga is Arjuna. Krishna is engaging Arjuna in that so that he can help to realize his soul. As he progresses in that, then his understanding of himself as a soul blossoms, and it turns from Karma Yoga, Nishkam Karma Yoga, to Jnana Yoga, where then he really realizes it. He really can see the difference between himself and the body and the mind. He sees it. Wow, I'm the observer. And then, of course, then he becomes very detached. We're attached because we think this body is me, and the sensations I have are my sensations, and this is my whole life. And if this happens, it'll ruin my life. And if this happens, my life will be made. And we have all these. We have this kind of notion like that. But if we see that we're separate, and none of this stuff is actually affecting us in any deep level, then renunciation happens, and then it's possible to remember to focus the mind on God. So for the yogis, they sit and meditate on the super soul. For us, we can remember Krishna. You see? So these things that are happening in these different yogas is exactly what's happening in bhakti, except that instead of having a Vedic dharma, we have our dharma of serving Krishna, and that part's involved. But otherwise, the attitude and the understanding, so much of those things are happening step by step. That's how it's working for us. So what we have in these first 6 chapters, even though there's the second through chapter 2 through 6 are more about this yoga ladder than bhakti directly. We can bhaktiize them,
Yes.
and we can benefit from hearing them to see, yes, is that happening in my bhakti? Do I understand the soul? Am I thinking even about that? Is my aim in life transcendence, or is it something else?
Okay.
Right? Why am I acting? Right? And is my acting helping to make me understand myself as a soul better? You see, all these things that Krishna is teaching Arjuna can be perfectly applied in our bhakti. And we can look and say, oh, wow, I'm not doing that. I'm not thinking very often that I'm a soul. I'm just serving. Right? And is my goal transcendence, or do I think, I'm just a physical body serving Krishna? You see, so
Krishna is telling in that mood only.
Hmm?
Krishna is telling by including bhakti while teaching the.
Well, Prabhupada gives it at the beginning. I gave that purport because Krishna's only purpose is to teach bhakti.
Okay.
Right? That's why he's leading up to it.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's why. So the fact that these things can lead to bhakti, that shows that that's his purpose. But also, Prabhupada reveals that these things, if you break bhakti into its pieces, these yogas will be in there. So there's a reason why they naturally progress to bhakti. They form certain essential components of bhakti. So that's why they're so valuable to us. That's why they're so valuable to us.
Okay. So we cannot say that this is Jnana Yoga not related to me.
No, we'd be crazy to do that.
Yeah.
That's why.
Everything in Bhagavad Gita is part of bhakti.
Yeah, that's why Prabhupada takes it that way.
Yeah.
Prabhupada talks bhakti from beginning to end, and that's why he does it. We can't do those things independently, but they reveal something essential about our bhakti practice, about bhakti itself, and there's applications that we can make of those principles to our bhakti that show that make them complete. So thank you all for all those who are online and you in person, and to those who may listen in the future to the recorded classes. And next week we'll conclude. It won't be next week. Actually, 2 weeks. We'll have 2 weeks off. I'll be away for a couple of weeks, and then after that we'll finish that second chapter, and then we'll move on from there. The next class will be just about that the last verses of chapter 2, talking about what it looks like for somebody who's successful in this Nishkama Karma Yoga. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.